Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so wonderful to have you on this workshop with me today, where we are going to be looking at answering a key question. Is toxic familiarity keeping you stuck? And I'm going to share with you what you can do about it. Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm an NLP practitioner. So if you don't know what that is, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistics Programming, which in short, that is it's a handbook to your mind. It's understanding how the mind works and using specific tools and techniques to really get what we want out of life by changing and reprogramming our minds. I'm also a mindset coach and a financial master coach. My superpower as a strategic empath is to empower my clients by transforming their inner world so that they can love their outer world, because I really do believe it all starts on the inside. And when we change what's on the inside, we start seeing the results on the outside. So I'm here to help you today to change your relationship with your thoughts so that you can live abundantly. So let's look at what is familiarity. And if we look at the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it says there, it's the quality or state of being familiar. So it's those things that are they become so normal to us that we just think that that is just the way it is. And that is not always the truth. And I hope that through this workshop today that I'm going to shake up some of your things that you are familiar with, especially when it comes to your thinking and your mindset, so that we can shake those things up and you can start to realize, like, maybe there's things that I'm thinking or believing that aren't actually true or aren't actually beneficial for me right now. So if we look at how does the beautiful brain work, and if you think about a supercomputer, so right now you are watching this maybe on a laptop, maybe on a desktop, you could be on a tablet, on a phone, any one of those devices. If you look at it, it's a supercomputer. I mean, years ago we didn't even think these things were going to exist, and now we have them and we can hold them in the palm of our hands and do so many different things. Now with this device, you've got hardware and you've got software. So your hardware is the physical thing, the phone or the desktop or the laptop, whatever it is. It's that physical thing that you can touch, see, touch, and feel. But the software is what is on the inside, what is running this program, what is making your phone work. I mean, if we think about it, the way there are so many updates all the time. So I'm an iOS user. I love Apple products. And I know with Apple and with Android, there's always new updates. I want you to think about our brain as the same thing. So the brain, the physical part, that is the hardware. Okay. And our thoughts, our beliefs, the patterns that run our life, that is like the software. And all information comes through our senses. So we see things and that information comes through, and that information is oftentimes stored as memories. Or we might see something and think like, okay, that is not really necessarily something that I need to remember. I mean, right now, think about how many yellow cars have you seen in the last week? It's not there, right? It's not there in your memory. You can't go back and say, oh, okay, I remember there and there and there and there, because the information came in and your brain said, okay, do I need to retain this information? Is this beneficial and helpful for me? Yes, I need to remember how many yellow cars there was. Or no, I don't need to remember this information. And the brain will then either store it as a memory, or it will just flow on by. If you think about it like a river, just flows on by past you and you don't need to retain the information. Same as with hearing. Think about a song that you really enjoy, and think about how sometimes when you hear a certain song, it will take you back to a memory, and you will be like, oh, I remember when I used to listen to this song, or I remember when something happened. So that is auditorily information coming in through your senses, and now you start retaining that information as memories or as beliefs. If you think about taste, I mean, I remember when I eat green beans, my grandfather used to make them a certain way, and I used to love the way he made green beans. So now every time I eat green beans and I taste green beans, I have a memory popping up from Sundays when we used to go to my grandfather's house and we used to eat chicken and potatoes and green beans, and that's the taste of the beans brings up that memory. So that memory that's there in my mind was associated through the sense of taste. We've got touch, feeling something. You might touch a texture and either be like, oh, I don't like this, or oh, this is so nice and warm and cuddly, and I remember when something. And so we've got it comes through visual, auditory, kinesthetic, which is the feeling, touching senses, and then our taste, and also smell. Have you ever experienced where somebody might have walked past you and they were wearing a certain perfume and it brought back a memory? So all the information that we have in our mind, all of our memories and our beliefs are stored they've come through our senses. So either it can be on a positive or a negative side. So if we think about software, when you have a virus and things aren't working properly, this is the same as when your mind is filled with toxic thoughts, when you are filled with toxic memories. And that's specifically what we're going to look at today, is what is toxically familiar for you, so that we can reprogram, release, and get rid of those things so that you can literally have a software upgrade. And then if we think about our unconscious mind, and that is the core responsibility of your unconscious mind, is to keep you safe. So if you think about maybe when you were a kid, you touched something hot, and oh, don't touch something hot. And now your unconscious mind has learned that pattern, like, oh, don't touch the stove because it could be hot. So you don't go around just touching the stove to see, okay, is it actually hot or not? Because you've now learned that pattern. It's created a pattern. So your unconscious mind is always trying to keep you safe. And sometimes as we're going through this training, you're going to see that sometimes things happen. We have certain reactions and outcomes to things which we might be thinking it's really negative, but our unconscious might have a positive intention of keeping us safe. So with these positive intentions, we don't always understand what it is, because this is happening at a subconscious level. We are not consciously aware. And through today's training, I hope to help you to become consciously aware of these things, because unless we're consciously aware of things, nothing really can change. For many years, they believed that your mind can't really change. Your programming can't really change. There was a lot of misunderstanding about this programming, this software that we run. And thanks to neuroplasticity and new scientific discoveries, they've realized that you can have a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. So if you think about a fixed mindset, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, an old dog can't learn new tricks. So that's saying that, okay, well, if you reach a certain age, you can't learn new things. And for a long time, that was people's beliefs. A lot of people would believe that if I wasn't born into a wealthy family, I will never be wealthy. People would believe that because of the family environment that I grew up in, maybe they grew up in a toxic environment, they believe that, well, they just have to be like that. And these things are not true. So thanks to neuroplasticity, we've realized that everybody can have a growth mindset. And this really is a choice. If you think about saying, I can't fill in the blank, whatever it is. I can't lose weight. I can't do this job. I can't be good at that. I can't anything. I mean, you can literally put anything in here. So as soon as you say that I can't, it's like if you think about that software, you saying, stop, don't run the software, right? So then nothing happens because you can't. But when you have a growth mindset, you change your language patterns, you change your thinking patterns. And instead of saying, I can't, you start asking yourself, okay, well, how can I? And as soon as you say, how can I? That's like putting a script saying, okay, run this software, go and find the answer for me. And what happens then is, because you have this growth mindset and because you now open to seeing these opportunities, what happens is you can actually start seeing things happening where they were always there. All these opportunities are around you all the time. But when you say, I can't, it's kind of like you're almost putting a filter over your eyes and saying, okay, stop. We don't need to look any further. So that is just, in short, a small explanation of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And through neuroplasticity, what they realized was that through our thought processes, through the thoughts that we have in that, we are creating all these little pathways in our mind. The more you repeat something, the deeper and the thicker that pathway becomes. And then that literally becomes a pattern that just gets played over and over and over. And the more you play it, the more it gets reinforced, the thicker it gets, the more difficult it is to move out of that thing specifically. And then there are unconscious cues. So what unconscious cues are is that somewhere there was a trigger that we were maybe not aware of. So if we think about, for instance, if I take you back to the music, okay, and listening to a song, perhaps the song is playing on the radio and it's playing in the background. So you're not really paying attention to the song because perhaps you might be busy doing something. Let's say you're working on your computer and you're doing something. So consciously, your attention is on what you're doing. But in the background, the song comes up. And what happens is that triggers an unconscious cue. So you suddenly have this pathway running, this pattern running. So consciously, you're now focused on the work you're doing. But then as you're doing it, what starts happening is the trigger is now might be triggering some emotions. And then you start feeling like, oh, I'm feeling agitated, annoyed. I don't even think I want to do this, whatever it was that you were doing. Let's say you're writing an email and perhaps something was said in the email, which normally you wouldn't react to, but because this trigger has now come up, you're now triggered by this thing that you're consciously doing. So if we think about this familiarity, and so it starts off with our thoughts and our beliefs, because from when you were a very young child, you started getting in all this information, and it wasn't necessarily always your information, because you would have got things from parents, from school, from society, from maybe advertising. Perhaps you were watching TV and you saw repetitive adverts, and so all this information was coming in. And up to about the age of 7, you just like a sponge and you're soaking everything in and soaking everything in, and then those things become your core beliefs. They become the things that you believe is, okay, this is true, this is the way it is. And then from there, those thoughts start playing out. So what happens is, if we look at this loop that then happens, is you have a thought or a belief that was triggered, right? That then goes into feelings. So it will either create positive feelings, but for today's purpose, we are looking at toxic things. So negative feelings. So something happens, thought, belief is triggered, you start feeling an emotion. That leads then into a behavior. So what is the behavior? Procrastination, maybe. Just don't want to do anything. And then you end up with the result. In order to change the result, we got to start by changing the thoughts. And what happens is, with toxic familiarity, like we spoke about earlier, it's those things that you're familiar with. So for all of us, we have blind spots. Even though I study all of this stuff, I still have blind spots, and I still have things that I oftentimes need somebody else, where I will work with a coach and I'll say, look, I'm really feeling stuck in this, or my behavior or my result isn't playing out the way that I want. What is it that is keeping me stuck in this place? Is there a blind spot? And then that person will help me work through it, and we will find the blind spot. What also happens here is there's a validation cycle. So let's say, for instance, the thought is that you might be thinking, I would like to start my own business. Okay, so the thought is, I'm not good enough. I won't be successful. So that leads to feelings where you feel like, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't feel like I have what it takes, which then leads to a behavior. And that behavior could be like we're talking about today, where you just feel stuck. You feel like you can't move forward. You're just stuck in this place, not sure what to do. Should I do this? Should I do that? And then that behavior leads to your results where you did nothing and you are still in the same place. So then your mind looks at the results and says, oh, you see, you didn't create anything, you didn't get anywhere, you didn't do anything. So it's true, you aren't good enough. And then the pattern keeps going, keeps going. So your mind is always looking for validation. It wants to be proved right, or you need to prove it wrong. And what we want to do is we want to, on these toxic thoughts and things, toxic beliefs, we want to prove it wrong. We want to say, no, okay, look, actually, this isn't the way that it is. So if we look at toxic symptoms, and there's a lot more than this, but these are generally the ones that most people struggle with. And we have scarcity, feeling unworthy, feeling stuck, self-sabotage, perfectionism, procrastinating, limiting beliefs, and comparisonitis. So I want you to just look at that list and count quickly. Like, is there one of these symptoms that you can say, oh, wow, yeah, I can totally relate to that there? Or is there maybe more than one? So even though these are negative and we might think like, oh, this is like, I need to get through this, I need to work through this, and I need to sort this thing out, but that thing might not actually be the problem. So remember earlier I spoke about positive intentions, about how the brain sometimes has us falling into a specific symptom to keep us safe. Perhaps I'm going to use the first one there, and we'll look at scarcity. So perhaps you've grown up where there was never enough, and you have this belief of never enough. Now, I'm not talking necessarily finances, because scarcity isn't always about money, but you might feel like there isn't enough time, there isn't enough jobs available, there isn't enough resources for me to start my business, there isn't enough whatever, just add there isn't enough, whatever there is. It could be on a positive intention side is, I'm going to use money as an example here. So if you're thinking about, okay, there isn't enough money, okay, I don't have enough money. So a positive intention could be, and I've seen this with a lot of clients that I work with, is they have this core belief that people who are rich are greedy. So you get stuck in the scarcity cycle because you actually have this belief that rich people are greedy. So therefore your mind translates that and says, okay, well, if you become rich, you're going to become greedy, and you don't like greedy because that goes against one of your core values, because maybe your core value could be helping others. So then you have this conflict. So your brain's saying, okay, well, in order to avoid the conflict, we're going to have this positive intention and we're going to keep you in this place of scarcity. It's like a safety door. So it's not always negative. And when we only focus on the symptom and not actually working on the cause and where it's coming from, the symptom will keep showing itself up because you haven't dealt with the root of the thing, of what it is. So I'm going to share with you the 5 steps. I call it a Riva. And these steps that I'm going to go through with you today, we are specifically talking about just recognizing those patterns and are you stuck, aren't you stuck, and looking at the symptoms. But literally these steps can be applied to anything in your life, whether it is something really big, like you want to say, okay, I want to take these steps. I want to plan out. I want to have my life plan, like, okay, for the next 20 years, or it can be as small as, I just want to drop a dress size. I just want to be able to fit in that dress that maybe I did last summer, whatever it is. So it doesn't matter how big or how small it is. So if we look at this, the first thing that we need to do is we need to get rid of the trigger. So I spoke earlier about the pattern that happens. So there's a trigger that sets off the thinking feeling. Okay. So your thoughts are always, you can't stop your mind from thinking. Thoughts is like a river. If you think about a river that continuously flows, that is our thoughts. It continuously flows. And it's only when we pick up the thought and we start getting ourselves into this thing and we're saying, okay, this thought, and now it creates this emotional, this feeling, which then leads to a behavior, which is then our reaction and our response to what's going on, to the trigger, and then that leads to the outcome. So we want to disrupt the toxic neural pattern. And this is one of the things why I absolutely love NLP, because through doing different breakthrough sessions, I can help my clients where earlier we spoke about that song. So when you hear that song, it has an emotional connection, emotional tie in your memories. And through NLP, we can actually go and we can cut that thing off and we can say, okay, the song is still there, the memory is still there, but it doesn't bring up all this emotion, it doesn't bring up all these triggers. So that's one of the things. But let's go through the 5 steps now. So the first step is awareness. You can't change anything unless you are aware of it. That song that was playing earlier while you were working, when I gave you that example, if you weren't aware of the song, there's nothing you can do about it, because you're just going to be caught up in the emotion, the feeling, which then leads to the behavior, but you're not going to really know why until that moment, that when you're working and the next time it happens, and right now you are aware of that thing that could happen, and you might be working and all of a sudden this emotion's going up and you remember what you learned yesterday and you're like, oh my gosh, it's that song playing. Now I understand why I'm feeling like this. Then you have the awareness, right? Then you can do something about it. But a lot of times, like I said, we have blind spots. So we're not always aware of these things. And one of the things that I always recommend to my clients is journaling. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't like journaling, I don't like writing. And I didn't like it when I started either. And I had a really difficult time. I'd write a bit, then I wouldn't. And then eventually I made a commitment to myself to be consistent and that I would write every day. And writing every day sometimes meant that I picked up my journal and I said, I don't feel like writing today. So I still wrote. I was still committed to the process, because it is a process. But the more you journal, the easier it becomes to turn inward, to listen, to hear what's happening on a subconscious level. And as you start writing things out, because when it's in here and it's in your mind and you're thinking about it and unconsciously it's there, you don't know, you're not really aware of it, but it's happening, it's going. Journaling, you're taking it out and you're putting it on paper, or you're putting, if you want a digital journal, Day One has an amazing digital journal, so you can actually put a passcode on there and everything. And if you're worried that anybody's going to be reading your thoughts, that's like brilliant, you know. But as soon as you get it out here and you're able to look at it, you'll start noticing patterns. You'll see things like, but I wrote about this last week. I can see a pattern happening here. And when you can see the pattern, that's when you can actually go and do something about it. That's when you can go and make the change. Another thing that you can do is just change your position. Because when you are here and you're focused here, all your attention is here. It's all here. It's in this little bubble happening, or it's in this little bubble happening. But when you just almost imagine yourself, the song is playing in the background, you're sitting on your computer, right? Go back to that memory, take yourself out and imagine yourself just standing in the back corner there, looking in. And then what do you see? You can maybe see yourself getting a little bit agitated. Maybe your fingers are going a little bit harder on the keyboard. And as you're standing in the back there, now you've got a bigger view of what's going on. And you could be turning around, looking at what's going on and noticing the song playing. So when you change your position, this is like a great thing that when you're in those toxic symptoms, because when you're in it, it is so difficult to see out. But when you're standing on the outside looking in, even if go to the above you, try and look down and see what is going on. And then another thing, when we think about just creating that awareness, let's take you feeling stuck, right? And imagine for a moment that a good friend of yours comes and sits down on the couch with you, drinking a nice cup of coffee or whatever you enjoy drinking together, and you're sharing a moment together, and your friend says, I feel so stuck. And your friend starts telling you the story about how they feel stuck. What are you going to say to them? Because that can help you also create a different awareness from a different person perspective. And then the second step is that reprogramming has to happen. So as soon as you are aware of something, we're going to keep going back to the song. Okay, so now you're aware of the song. So what do? Okay, do you just go and switch off the radio? Do you decide that, look, I'm not going to let this song affect me anymore. I'm going to go journal out. Why is this happening? There could be unhealed emotions there. There could be things that you still need to process and work through. And doing that in your journal is a perfect way. So some of the ways in which this reprogramming can happen, because we've got to reprogram our thoughts and our beliefs. We got to reprogram at an emotional level so that we're not triggered all the time. And then we got to reprogram our behavior also, because we have certain strategies. It's like, I'm hungry. I'm going to open the fridge, right? And I'm going to take something out of the fridge and I'm going to eat it. That is a strategy. Okay. So as soon as the hunger is triggered, then that is what I do. Everybody might do something else. Somebody else who has a very holistic, healthy way might have the trigger, I'm hungry. And then they might turn inward and think like, okay, I'm hungry. What is my body needing right now? Am I really hungry? Am I just thirsty? Do I need to go drink some water? So their strategy might play out differently. And so we need to have certain behaviors reprogrammed. So if I'm wanting to lose that dress size, and if every time I feel hungry, I open the fridge, I grab something and I eat it, whether I actually want it or not, is not going to be beneficial for me. I'm not going to get the results that I want. However, if I change my strategy and I say, okay, am I really hungry? Let me go drink some water and see if the hunger persists, I am hungry, and then go and look for something healthy. I'm going to have different results. So at all these different levels, there is a reprogramming that needs to happen. And so here are just some ways that reprogramming can happen. I mean, this in itself can be a whole course on its own. And so one of the things is by reframing things. So earlier when I spoke about I can't, so in reframing it, you're saying, okay, how can I? That is reframing a thought that you had. Affirmation. So when you repeat certain mantras, certain words, certain things, your beliefs and your thoughts start changing. But yeah, you need to be careful, because affirmations don't always work. And this is the reason why they don't always work, is because, let's say my thought belief pattern is I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. Okay. And your affirmation is I am amazing, for instance. Okay. I'm amazing. I'm amazing. I'm amazing. Now you're trying to reprogram that thought. What ends up happening is you say, I'm amazing. Your subconscious repeats back to you and says, no, you're not. I'm amazing. No, you're not. I'm amazing. No, you're not. I'm amazing. No, you're not. So nothing is actually changed. Nothing is being programmed. Okay. However, if you change the affirmation, and the affirmation might then be, I'm learning to love myself. I'm learning to stop self-doubting myself. I'm getting braver to look at myself in the mirror. Whatever it is, when you start changing the affirmation to not have the negative feedback, that then you can start reprogram. Because what will then happen is when you say, I'm learning to love myself, I'm learning to love myself. There's a saying that says, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. So you might be having this affirmation, I'm learning to love myself, I'm learning to love myself. And you're scrolling on Facebook, and next minute you see this ad about a workshop on self-love, and you think, oh yeah, I think I want to do that. And that is where one of the other things in reprogramming that I have right at the bottom there is learning something new. So part of reprogramming is relearning certain things, so that instead of having that belief that I'm not good enough, you're learning something new. And then you realize like, oh, actually, maybe I am. Because, and even in the session today, you're learning that your thoughts and your beliefs aren't necessarily good for you. They aren't necessarily actually your truth, because you would have picked these things up from when you were very young. So now you have like 7-year-old you running your life now, and it doesn't have to be like that. You can do various reprogramming and things like that. Another way is that you need to know that the possibility actually exists. So we looked at earlier, one of the examples I gave was maybe you want to start your own business. And if you keep having negative thoughts and this negative pattern playing out, it might be because you don't believe you're good enough, you don't think you're smart enough, maybe you're not skinny enough, whatever it is, you have all these not enoughnesses. But maybe it's just that you need to realize that the possibility exists. And if you start looking at other people who have a business like what you would like to do, and you go and just look at these different things, or start reading different books at where people who had similar interests, similar beliefs to yourself, where they came from this place and where they grew this successful business. You know what, if they can do that, why can't I? And then like that reprogramming is taking place also. And then, like I said earlier, with the NLP breakthrough, there is so much reprogramming that can be done because we work at a conscious, subconscious level. And then number 3 is your identity, because this has a huge, huge, huge impact in you getting what you desire. So we have I am statements. So you might say, I'm a wife, I'm single, I'm a lawyer, I'm an athlete, I'm a student. What is your I am statement? I am. What do you say? Okay, so most of the time that is what you do. It's not really your identity. And then we also have I am beliefs. And these, we've been talking a lot about this already. I'm not good enough. I'm clumsy. I'm bad with money. But these are behaviors. They're not your identity. And so often, and with 90% of the clients that I work with, they've taken on a behavior and they've made it their identity. They're living in that thing of I can't, I'm not good enough, I am this, I am that. But that is just a behavior. And remember, when we went through the cycle, it starts with the thought, feeling, and then a behavior. Your behavior is not who you are, because you can go back, you can reprogram the thought and the belief, and the behavior will change. So your identity is who you are in character and values. And in order to get what you want, to not be stuck anymore, to not be in this toxic familiarity, to live out your dreams, to be in abundance, you need to be in character and value that person. And I'm not talking now about a fake it until you make it. I hate that saying. I really hate that saying, because you don't have to fake it. So if you think about, let's talk about starting a business, or you want to start a business, or you want to drop a dress size, whatever it is, it really doesn't matter. If you put yourself in the shoes of, okay, I'm already that person who is successful. When I started my business, I'm already that person who has dropped the dress size. So you go and you go into your future a little bit and you put yourself into that position, because that's ideally what you want, right? And then you say to yourself, okay, well, who do I need to be? Who is that person? How's that person different from the person I am right now? What decisions do they make? How are they thinking? What is their behavior? What is the strategies that they play out? What characters do they have? What values do they have? Because right now you might be, I'm going to use people pleasing as an example. You might be a person that struggles with people pleasing. But when you have your own business, you need to be the person who can set good boundaries. So now you know, okay, that's a value, that's a character that I need to work on. So you're not going to fake it. You're not going to fake like, oh, I've got these boundaries, or I'm this kind of person. You're not going to fake it. You're going to start becoming what it is that you need to be in order to achieve it. And then the fourth one is a vision. And I love this little clip from Alice in Wonderland. And she's standing there and she's speaking to the Cheshire Cat. And she said, and the cat says, "Where are you going?" And Alice says, "Well, which way should I go?" And the cat says to her, "That depends on where you are going." And Alice says, "I don't know." Then the cat says, "Well, it doesn't matter which way you go." And for a big part of our lives, we have lived, unless you've changed and you've created a vision, in that way. It's like, I don't know where I want to go. I know I want X, Y, and Z in my life. Maybe I want a nice house, I want a nice car, I want to have this kind of lifestyle, I'd like to have this job, I'd like to have so many kids, or I'd like to have no kids, or whatever it is. You have this vague idea, right? Which is just kind of the path, you know, but you don't have a vision for where you're actually going. And then it doesn't matter which way you go. So in all these things, whether it's a big thing or a little thing, so let's talk about dropping the dress size, okay, or starting the business. You have to have a vision for where you want to go. It mustn't be just the thought, okay, well, I want to drop a dress size. But you go and you visualize it. You see yourself as the person who has now dropped the dress size. And then you look at, okay, well, what is the path that I need to take in order to get where I want to go? It's like Google Maps. If you go to Google Maps and you say, okay, Google Maps, right, I am at X place, okay, take me there. Nothing's going to happen, because Google needs a destination, and that's your vision, that's your destination. So whether it's the next 20 years of your life, whether it's next week, you want to achieve something by next week, it doesn't matter what it is, you need to have a vision. And then number 5 is taking action, because you can want all of these things. The reprogramming, you understand now what is happening, right? You understand the thoughts and the beliefs process. You understand how it plays out in your emotions and in your behavior. So this is where the action part comes, because you need to do things differently. You need to set those goals to drop the dress size. And perhaps, and I find this a lot with people, is that you don't actually set the goal because you already feel like, oh, I can't do it. But that's the thought pattern that's happening. So it's about fixing it first at the awareness stage. You can't start at the action stage. And this is where a lot of people fall short, is because they start at the action stage. They start and they say, okay, well, I want this, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they fail. And then that just reinforces that neuro pattern anyway. So setting good goals that are authentic to you, not just I want to drop a dress size, but having is that really what you want, or is that somebody else's goal? You know, looking at your strategies. So taking action in possibly changing some of your strategies completely, working on maybe just making slight changes to your strategies, whatever it is, as part of action is setting rituals, having good daily habits, good rituals, that when you wake up in the morning, perhaps you don't pick up your phone first thing. because you get sucked into the social media, and then you get into this whole loop of negative thinking, and then you don't want to do anything, so you procrastinate the whole day and nothing gets done. But looking at, okay, setting up positive rituals to reinforce what it is you want, to reinforce reprogramming your mind. And part of those rituals might be to every single day go through your affirmations, every single day to work on your vision, visualize what it is that you want, and then taking consistent action, because consistency is the key to success. It doesn't matter how much action you take or how little. It's like if you think about going to the gym. If you go to the gym once a year and you work out for 5 hours, okay, what's your result going to be? Versus, let's say you go to the gym for 90 days and you go to the gym for 15 minutes every single day for 90 days. You're going to see some results, because even though you're being consistent and you're taking small action compared to the 5 hours in the gym, because of the consistency, you will see some results. And then I want to leave this with you. And this is one of the NLP presuppositions. This is just something that we believe. And it says that there is no failure, only feedback. And when you're working at reprogramming your mind and changing all these things and following the steps, sometimes what happens is it goes horribly wrong. And there you have a choice. And most of the time, what we do is we'll go, oh, I'm such a failure. I can't do this. Nothing ever works out for me. This is just, I need to quit now, whatever it is. But rather, I want you to think about it as there is no failure. Whatever is happening on the outside, or even what's happening internally, because you might have a huge internal struggle because your brain is trying to protect you from something. Look at it and say, okay, this is feedback. This is coming back to me. Okay. So what was the results? What was this? What is the emotions coming up? What is the thoughts that are happening? How can I do this better? What do I need to change? And then following action on those things, rather than just getting into a place of just feeling pity for yourself. So yes, I want to leave you with this exercise today. And like I said, the first step is awareness. You have to have awareness, and you need to ask important questions from within. So like I spoke about earlier, all your memories, everything, your knowledge, everything is within you. It is all there within you. So if you take one of these symptoms, whatever you might be struggling with right now, and I want you to just get quiet and think about it, or write out the thoughts that you're having when you're feeling this, and just turn inward. And let's say we spoke about being stuck. And you can ask yourself, why am I stuck? Why do I feel stuck? What is keeping me stuck? You can ask yourself, are there any triggers that are making me feel stuck or that are keeping me stuck? Whatever it is, whatever the emotions are that are coming up for you, all these things, just take note of them, write it down, or just internally, just start processing it. Listen for what is coming up. And sometimes when you first start doing this, sometimes it's difficult to just get quiet and stop. But trust the process, that the answers will come. You will get the answer. It might not be in that moment, but you might later be doing something. You might be like me that gets woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Like I have this 3 o'clock in the morning thing where I'll just wake up and I'll be like, oh, I got it. Thank you. I'll make a quick note on my phone and I go back to sleep. So trust the process. It will always come up for you. And then reframing those thoughts and emotions. So the thought, I don't have what it takes to be successful. Reframe that and create an affirmation. Say, I'm learning new skills. I'm taking action to be successful. Whatever it is, to have your own reframing that feels good for you, because at the end of the day, it has to be authentic to yourself. Your emotion, I feel stuck. Reframe. Close your eyes, okay? And I want you to imagine physically like you're stuck in something. And now I want you to find a way to either climb out of it or to break free from it. And just in your mind, just imagine that whole thing happening, seeing yourself, whatever it is, breaking free from that, stepping out of that, moving. And then once you've done that, I want you to go and take some action to something you want. It doesn't matter what it is, just take some kind of action to whatever it is. It has been wonderful to share all of these things with you. And if you've got any questions around some of the things that I shared, or if you're feeling stuck and you need some help to get unstuck, if you want to get connected with me, my website is vanessavf.com, or you can catch me on social media at Vanessa VF Coaching. Thank you very much for giving me your time, and I hope that you will really do these exercises and apply these things to your life. And I'm wishing you all the best, and I hope to get connected with you soon. Ciao.